Today on the show, we find out why your marketing's not working. How's it going, everybody? Jason Croft here. Today on the show, we've got Jonathan Heston. I brought him on the show because he is a master at getting to the core of what's really not working in your life. Now that's a big, broad blanket statement, right? But that's really what he gets at. So a lot of you out there are entrepreneurs or you know, maybe you're a high-level exec at a company, maybe you're a consultant. And for all of us, we've got to balance these main areas of our lives, from personal to business and all these levels that we get into with Jonathan here. What Jonathan does, and what we do in this interview, is we get to the core of all of that, and we bring in solutions to how we can finally feel that that balance. And the only reason I pause when I say balance is because it's kind of a loose, tricky term, right? But there is an underlying consistency that we need to have in our lives in order to make the business work, the personal work, the health work, and on and on. And like I said, Jonathan's a master at helping us figure out how to solve that and how to make that happen. So by the end of this interview, I think you'll have some great insights into making that happen for you in your life. So let's jump into it. Jonathan Heston.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show, man.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you're down here from Kansas City.
Yeah, I'm pumped. Thank you
Nice.
so much.
He drove all the way down here just to be on the show.
Just for this, this moment.
Drove down. It's amazing, right? So you were coming down for Ryan Stewman's event. Actually, I mean, you have several things lined up.
Yep.
Down here.
Right.
Ryan Stewman, by the time this airs, you'll have seen his episode on the show. That was awesome. Great last couple of days at his event. That was super cool.
Yes.
So I've been, it's been a blast. Jonathan and I have known each other through the old internet there for a little while, so it was great to meet in person and link up. And Jonathan just does an amazing job working with, all kinds of businesses, certainly entrepreneurs a lot, things like that. So let us know, what's your specialty in life right now?
Whew, big question. So a lot of people know me from my book, The Unlimited Self.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic book, by the way.
Thank you. So I'm definitely a writer and author, but my specialty right now is really helping people and supporting people in getting to that optimal state of performance, and getting to that place of fulfillment where they're waking up with fire in their bones and they're not just fire. So I talk about the 4 cylinders. So if you think of a four-cylinder engine,
Mm-hmm.
Back when I was a young entrepreneur, I blew a cylinder in my old Camry. It had like several 100,000 miles on it. And I didn't know the cylinder was blown, but it's starting to warp. And when I'd come up to a stop sign, I'd go to accelerate, my engine would be like, and it wasn't catching.
Yeah.
And so I kind of go back to this idea of 4 cylinders. And if one of them's blown, then you are not operating where you want to be in life. You're not going to find fulfilling results. And there's a big difference between results, where you have the money, you have the stuff that you want, everything like a lot of entrepreneurs are going for is like the impact, the cash flow, the results, the time freedom. So you have the results, but then you have the fulfillment piece. And that's where, when you get the results, you're actually fulfilled. And you're actually waking up with like, I have a purpose, I have a mission, I have an impact. And I love where my life is right now. I love, like, each day is better than the last.
Right.
So coming back to that 4-cylinder thing. So you got health, wealth, identity / faith, and relationships. And in general, like, my specialty is helping people max all of those cylinders out in a good way, optimize all those cylinders as much as possible so there's no catch in the engine.
That's awesome. I love that description of it and that visual of it as well, because we all go through this up and down in different areas. It's the spinning plates kind of thing.
Yep.
Like to actually get all 4 of those firing at once is such a challenge, because you see people go, from 0 to $1 billion, and then they're miserable.
One of their cylinders blows.
Right.
And their whole engine.
Right. And I think, and that's the challenge, right? Like, how do you, I guess for me, is it easier to, in the long run, to actually do all of this at once? Or is it, because most of us, we find the one that we're maybe good at, or it's already going well, and we, hit that, whether it's work, and we fire that up, and then, oh crap, something's missing, my health or this, and then, we go to the other, because we see it as, okay, I can concentrate on one thing at a time.
Yes.
Is that easier, or is that essentially a myth? And if you would actually go through all 4 at the same time in a more balanced way, the net of it all will actually be success faster and easier.
Yeah.
But that's a really convoluted question.
No, great question. I love it. And I'm going to kind of back into it a little bit.
Okay.
I love the question. So so we tend to compartmentalize everything. And so I really want to get down to the beingness, like the beingness of somebody outside of the doingness. And so if you take the engine analogy and you add in the idea of oil and gasoline, oil, I would ask you to consider is unconditional love. So having unconditional love flowing through all of the cylinders.
All of it, yeah.
The gasoline would be impeccable integrity. And when I say impeccable integrity, another way that I talk about unconditional love and integrity is like they're the 2 tracks on a railroad, and they keep each other in balance. And so when you start to check into the integrity of those areas, that's where I see a lot of high performers leak a ton of energy and leak a ton of power, because they compartmentalize so much that they one cylinder is like working its ass off, right?
Right.
But another cylinder is blown, and so their entire engine is chugging. And so for me, I don't think in terms of like, a to-do list of my relationship, a to-do list of my health, a to-do list of my wealth. I think of it in terms of like, where is your integrity in those areas? And is there any area of shame? Is there any area of guilt? And if you have a constriction in your body and your beingness, so you have mindset and you have body set. If you have a constriction in your body when you try on your relationship cylinder, for example, and you know that you're not in integrity, you know there's hard conversations that you haven't had with your wife, you know that you haven't played catch with your son and he's asked you 4 times in the last week and you've been putting it off. If there's constriction and there's a tightness in your body, a tightness in your gut, in your chest, then that's a sign that you're out of integrity.
Off. Yeah.
And so if you're out of integrity in any area of your life, then your engine's on its way to being blown. Eventually there's going to be, it's going to get worse until something blows. And so from that perspective, I'm not necessarily saying, okay, you need to have a to-do list here in this cylinder and this cylinder and this cylinder, but I am saying that you have to be right with yourself and in integrity with yourself and how you freaking show up in those areas.
So I dig that. I love it.
Okay.
And it's a much deeper, it's a deeper level than so many other people talk about and approach all of this, because you hear balance and work-life balance and all that kind of stuff. But I think that common approach is the to-do list.
Yes, for sure.
But then, so somebody who hears that from you, gets it, can conceptualize that. What is the action then? What is the action to take in order to get balance in all those areas?
The action is, the first thing is realizing and having the awareness that there's this quote, the way you do one thing is the way you do all things.
Right.
And there's always exceptions to quotes and analogies. But
sure.
And this idea, if you stop compartmentalizing life and you realize that if you're out of integrity in one area, it's going to impact all the other areas. If one of your cylinders is blown, it's chugging along, then it's going to hold back the other cylinders. It's going to hold back your results in other areas. And when you find those places where you're out of integrity, and let me define integrity here really quick. a lot of people say integrity is doing what you say you're going to do. I want to take it a little bit deeper. I want to propose and invite people to consider that integrity is telling the truth about your experience moment by moment.
Interesting.
It's telling the truth about what you're feeling. It's telling the truth about what you're thinking. Now, there's a balance to this. We have wisdom. Every truth has a paradoxical truth, right? But especially when it comes to your close relationships, are you in a place where you can be you? Like in your marriage, are you in a place where you can be you? What everyone wants in an intimate relationship is to be fully known and fully seen as they are, not as they should be or as they wish they could be, or as someone hopes they could be. And so, as it relates to integrity, that definition can help. So to come full circle and kind of make your question a little bit more practical, what can people do as it relates? It's like checking in, and if you check in and you find and you increase your body awareness. So let's get really practical.
Yep.
If you just pause right now, listening, wherever you are, if you can take a chance, unless you're driving, you don't do it.
I will pause right now.
But just close your eyes.
All right, my eyes are closed, Jonathan. I'm ready. Wait.
And do some deep breaths, and then start considering your health. Start considering your wealth. Start considering your relationships. Start considering your identity, like who you are, why you're here, your connection with God, your connection with yourself. And as you try those on and just breathe through it and start asking questions like, am I playing at the level that I want to be playing at? And am I in integrity with the highest expression of who I want to be? And when you start checking in and breathing, you're probably you may not get thoughts around it, because thoughts tend to be the mental to-do list. But you may get some constriction in your body feeling. And this is why I'm a huge fan. I think thoughts and mindset and body set have to work together. You can't separate the two. And so just a really quick breakdown. If you have constriction in your stomach, you probably have some fear around something. If you have constriction in your chest and throat, that's sadness that you're feeling around something.
Interesting.
If you have constriction in your neck and shoulders, that's anger that you're feeling around something, which usually is covering fear and sadness. And so the thing is I don't know the answers, but if you calm your mind and you calm your heart and you check in with yourself, you will feel constriction in areas where you're out of integrity. You'll know it's yes, I am not playing at a level 10 in this area with my wife. I am not playing at a level 10 with my health in this area.
Right, because you already,
yes.
Somebody listening out there knows, even if they've never paid attention to it and thought about it, they kind of know there's a little tugging at them. And if they stop and they take that pause that you talk about for just a moment, they're going to feel that somewhere.
Yes.
So then how do you help people to that next step? This is, because I want to get into, what, again, back to what your specialty is. It is this world, and it's helping people through that and get to that next level. So let's say somebody's done that with their wealth, their finances. They feel that constriction somewhere. What is that next step for them to explore or action to take?
Yeah, so then it's really digging into what's the roots, the subconscious drivers behind what's going on with that. Often awareness is enough.
And what is that process like? So if someone's, I guess, and I want to make sure we have a good context, because I know a lot of what you do. I know your background, and I want to make sure I'm not skimming over anything for the audience.
Totally. I can tend to dive deep.
And so how are you usually interacting with a client now, for instance?
Yeah, so right now at the client, generally we'll have a one-on-one call, and we'll do Zoom, so I can...
And how does somebody, even before, how does somebody find you and come across, and is it through writing and blog typically?
Yeah, so referrals, Facebook posts, my writing, my Facebook post, which is kind of like my blog, but my book, The Unlimited Self, which is the whole point of The Unlimited Self, is identifying and destroying limiting beliefs. And just a really practical approach of okay, where do the subconscious limiting beliefs come from? How can you locate the ones that are holding you back, and then how can you disintegrate them and really release them from a belief to just a thought, and then they don't have any impact on your actions or your ability to perform. So my book, referrals. So really what happens when it comes from like just A to Z with the client, generally someone will reach out or get referred. I just get on the phone with them and we do a really deep dive and just get super clear on what's working and what's not working.
And so you start with them in that process of pausing and going through each of those areas.
Some of those areas, but then just other stuff. I just really want to get to know them, and just everybody is so unique and everyone is facing unique challenges on unique levels caused by different things. And so I am not someone that can like say, okay, here's the solution like quickly. For me, I have to know with absolute certainty, like, yes, like I can see the path forward. I know exactly how to like take this from a level 4 to a level 10.
Yeah. And you find that's a discovery process.
Yes, it's totally a discovery process. It's generally a 2 to 3 hour conversation. And I'll say this, if you plug in, like if we're using a GPS and we're like, okay, I want to get to this destination. I want to get to New York City. One of the main things that holds me back, that holds anybody back, is we do not have the objective understanding of the truth as it relates to where we're at.
So our actual starting point.
Exactly. The GPS has to know the starting point. Like for a GPS to work, you have to tell the truth about where you want to go, and you have to tell the truth about where you're at. And if you're not telling the truth about where you're at, and that's one of the main things that holds people back. Actually, they don't tell the truth because there's levels of guilt and shame. They don't tell the truth because you don't know what you don't know. They don't have the thought paradigm around it. They don't have the outside perspective. You can't see the forest for the trees. Right. And so one of the things that conversation does, and I only get on this conversation if people agree, like I'm going to show up fully transparent, 100%. I tell people, you're going to probably tell me stuff that you wouldn't tell a priest. and we just do a really, really deep dive.
Yeah. And it's so interesting because I think we hear a lot in that GPS analogy about defining that destination. I think that's somewhat common in our world. You know what I mean? And it's absolutely true as well. You have to know where you're going.
Have clear goals, have this, have that,
and all that. But to what you're getting at, I really like, because you're talking about most people's mindset in that situation is they want to get out of wherever they are so fast.
Yes.
So all they're going to think about is that destination and how to get there. But you're talking about the tough part. You're talking about sit in it for a minute.
Yeah.
and really be honest with where you are, because then and only then can you find your best in your optimal route.
Exactly.
To there, right?
Yeah, totally, exactly. And that's one of the big missing pieces. Mm-hmm. And the ability to actually, one of the big pivotal points in my journey was falling in love and appreciating the me that had failed so many times in the past. Mm. Like wherever you're at right now in your journey, listeners and you and me, wherever we're like, it's been built on our past. And what we tend to do is like what you said, we want to get out of where we're at. We want to escape it. And there's even this piece of like, I'm not going to go back to that thing.
Right.
And this like almost this dismissive hatred. Hatred's a strong word, but really like back then I was negative thing, right?
That, and then layered on top of that is I should be here right now.
Yes, very much so.
So, I mean, for me personally, I mean, that's just, those two things mesh together really strongly.
And part of, just ironically, getting to that place where you are getting the results that you want, you are reaching that destination, it's so critical that you accept who you are, where you've been, and more importantly, or as important, I should say, face the truth of what's going on for you in this moment. Yep. Because what's going on for you in this moment, like it or not, is the key ingredients for what's going to create where you want to go. And until you look at yourself in the mirror and you do an integrity check, you do a heart check, you do a gut check about stuff in the past that has impacted you that you didn't realize that impacts your subconscious, about integrity glitches where it's been easier and safer for you and more comfortable to just be out of integrity than to like have the sweaty palm conversation
Yeah.
or to stand up for yourself and actually value yourself and actually get the support that you need or be open to learning or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Until you tell the truth, nothing changes.
And I'll throw my dirty laundry out here as a way for people to realize listening too, that when you talk about being out of integrity, it's not a matter of they've swindled somebody out of something or they've done something dishonest.
Yes.
Back to your definition earlier, this is more looking at yourself. Like for me, I certainly feel like, okay, I should be doing this, and this already. In this past year, I've known better, I've done this. But when I get honest with myself, much of what we talked about yesterday at the conference, I haven't been showing up and doing the work. I've been conceptualizing still a whole lot of stuff and which path. And until I own the fact that, well, yeah, have you known what to do? Have you known that you should show up and have your this many posts a day and this many videos and this? Well, yeah. Have you done it? Well, no. Boom, there's your answer. Let's go from there.
Yes.
And and it's not like, okay, you're a jackass because you didn't do that. And maybe I am, but it's not a matter of that. It's a matter of, okay, this is our starting point.
Yeah.
And now let's go.
I love that you went there because this is where unconditional love comes in. So most people, they don't face the truth of where they're at because there's some guilt or shame tied into it. Like a subconscious guilt or shame.
And I will say too, like, because I know when you talk about that part of it is your next phase of now love the fact that you're still right here. Yep. And that's really hard for me. Yeah. Because tied up in all of that, I can be appreciative of everything I've learned. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure I can get past, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's a level of that for me, and maybe a lot of people listening, that is, well, no, you have screwed up this past year or this past 43 years or whatever.
Totally.
And it's not a, I guess it is a little self-hatred there stuff. I think that would be too strong. But that part of it that you're layering is even harder.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, let's go there. I have like 3 different tangents that I could like riff on right now. So I'm seeing which one's going to be the most powerful one. So we develop what I call a should gap. So in Western culture, we have this idea that we know something when we can mentally comprehend it. So if someone tells you, hey, if you really want to succeed, you need to post 3 times a day on Facebook. If you really want to succeed, you need to put out content like crazy. If you really want to succeed, you need to raise your prices or whatever the story is. Wherever you're feeling like, so the first step, you told the truth. You're like, okay, I'm not putting in the work. Right. Now the question is, why? Why is that work not a hell yes for you? Mm-hmm. And often it's an integrity thing. And until you address like some of and what I mean by integrity, I don't mean like this, like, hey, just get up and do it. I mean, there's not a full-bodied alignment to that yet. It's not like, oh, yes, like this is expansive. There's not fire in your bones around it. And there's a reason. That reason could be a limiting belief. That reason could be fear. But until you tell the truth of like recognizing, okay, I'm not showing up, then you can ask the next question, why? Yeah. And then when you ask that next question, you can start to identify, it's like, okay, I'm afraid of rejection. Actually, I don't like writing content. I don't like Facebook, whatever it might be. Right. And then as you start to explore that, you can start to realize like, okay, this actually isn't me. I don't need to express myself in this way. Or you start to realize things like, interesting, I'm afraid. And then that's when you dig into the deeper stories. Mm-hmm. But going back to like, how do you love the part of you? I want to go back to that should gap. Mm-hmm. In the Western world, we tend to think that if we've mentally comprehended something, if we've read information about it, if we've been taught something, that we then can embody that.
Right. And that's the key to knowledge and wisdom and everything, is just knowing it.
Yes, and the truth is like knowing it and doing it are 2 completely different things. Doing it is a process. Any commitment is here's the definition of commitment. Commitment is the process of recommitment.
Interesting.
Commitment is simply the process of recommitment. And whenever you're moving something from a mental concept to a doing and a being, there's always going to be this process, because there's always going to be the process of like committing to it, falling off, failing, and then recommitting to it. And what normally happens is people get fired up, they get a mental idea, they're like, okay, I need to do that.
Right.
And they're like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it this time. They get this big vision. They do it for, a week or two, and then the hypnotic rhythm of what was in their life beforehand kind of takes over, and it falls off the bandwagon. And then they don't face the truth that it fell off the bandwagon.
Right.
And they don't dig into why. And they feel so much guilt and shame and like a failure that they just put it off, procrastinate.
Right.
So when we can bring the love to the guilt and shame and realize, oh, look, commitment is a process of recommitment. This is more like I'm learning to ride a bike here. I'm a little kid. I'm a 2-year-old learning how to walk. And it's not like, oh, I fell down, I need to give up, I'm a failure, I don't love myself. It's like having the grace of like, cool, this is something new. I'm adding a new priority to my life.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Can I bring
that
love to this area?
That analogy helps a lot. And I've heard that analogy, but that structured this way, to me, is a bit of a revelation and a great mindset shift with it. Right?
Awesome, love it.
Because it's again falling in love with the process of it all and that long game, that long picture of it all. Like, it doesn't matter how many times I fall down or stop doing something and restart and stop, because here's my end result. So for me, sometimes it is just, yeah, you didn't do it, so do it now.
Yeah.
Go do it.
Yep.
And what I try to keep myself accountable and fight against is too much of what you talked about a little bit, which is when it happens, stopping and going, okay, why did I stop? I wonder why. Maybe this whole thing isn't for me. I don't know. Maybe this is, oh man. And then over processing that. And some of the most successful times I've had is when I'm still introspective about that stuff, but just blew through it anyway.
Yeah.
And erred on the side of just do it again. Just do it again. Just do it again.
Yeah.
And that's been a big driver for me and a big shift to kind of go forward.
Love it. Yeah. No, that's so key. I think that the self-love piece, I mean, we could dive into that for like hours.
Sure.
Because I think it's really critical. I have this thing called the success equation where we're brought up to believe like we are enough when success equals X, Y, and Z. We are enough when, and this is all programmed differently for all of us, but we are enough when I get the college degree, when I get the house, when I get married and have the family, or we're enough when, I'm not a slave to my job.
Yeah.
I have $1 million business. I have, whatever that might be, whatever that equation is. And the self-love piece kind of like you have nothing to prove. You don't have an identity to defend. You have nothing to prove. You have nothing to hide. And there is no success equation. It's a trap.
You're enough now.
Yeah, there doesn't need to be the other half of the equation. Like your beingness, your existence, the fact that you've already won the race, you're breathing. Like you could have been a rock floating through space, right? You could have been like a tree. You could have been like 1,000 years earlier, 1,000 years later, but like the fact is you're here, you're breathing, you have this existence, you have this moment. Every single breath, your heart right now, within the last, like this entire conversation has beat like, I don't know how many hundreds of times supporting your life. Like that alone is enough. And when you start to build on that identity and foundation, which is not easy because subconsciously we're programmed to build out that equation. But when you start to build from that, then when you catch yourself
yelling and being angry,
failing, or getting caught in like this mental loop of is this what I want? Is this am I on the right thing or whatever? Then like even that mental loop, you love that, and when you love it, it disintegrates the constriction around it, and then you're back in integrity because you're like, then you're back in a place of power because love transforms the fear, it transforms the sadness, it transforms the anger. And it brings you back to the place out of fight or flight back here where you're thinking in either I do this or I'm not aligned or whatever. And then it's back into creative energy, where the truth is you have a million choices in front of you, second by second by second. Like right now, I could open this door.
Right.
Right. I could stop talking. I have all of us, we have this million, like this infinite potential in front of us. And the greatest place to create is from that place of love. So I know I went on a big long tangent there.
No, that's huge. That's super powerful.
So going back to your question though, around like sometimes you find it better to just take action, which you have your thinking and your doing and your being and whatever order you want to put those in. Like action combines your mindset with your body set, and what you're doing is you're triggering your body set, which often influences your mindset. So that's awesome. I love it. There's when you identify consistent areas where it's a consistent, like you having to like use your willpower to get back, like use force in a way to get back into that place. Those are the areas where there's probably something deeper, where there's like little like internal constrictions that are deeper. And when you can clean up that energy, then that piece becomes a flow thing instead of like you got to wake up and force it thing.
Right.
Because your vision is so big and there's so much openness around it, instead of maybe like a limiting belief, like if I make millions of dollars, I'm going to leave someone I love behind. Like maybe my brother's not successful, and I love my brother, and we grew up together, and he's on the path that he is going to be 50, grumpy, barely paying his bills, probably have health problems, and here I am on this path of being a multimillionaire. And so there's part of you that's like, yes, I need to do the work, I want to do the work to accomplish this result. But subconsciously there's this other part of you knowing that there's going to be potentially this hard conversation or this jealousy that arises, and you're so scared of that. And until you face the truth of, like, this is just a micro example, but until you face the truth of that and you get clear around that inside of yourself and see the reality of it, bring love to it and heal that stuff, every time it's going to feel like you're dragging a boulder every time you go to live out your purpose.
Is it too difficult to answer the question of how at this point? Like, how do you dig in? And obviously help from someone like you, help from you particularly, but how you would dig into that and, number one, identify which of it is it I just need some more reps and have this bigger vision and just keep at it, or finding, okay, this is something showing up that keeps blocking me, and if I look back on my life, it stopped me here, and here. What's that? Again, I guess I'm constantly looking for that action or that take, or even if it's a process of digging deeper. But what's that? How to identify that?
I mean, a big piece of the how I would have, like, it starts with self-awareness. Like the importance of being self-aware, the importance of knowing what's going on in your body, not just mental, because the mental loops, like whatever you feed your brain's going to expand. Like what you focus on expands. So if you ask your brain to find all the reasons why you're a failure, it's going to bring you the list. It's going to be, hey, reporting for duty. Here you go.
Right.
And it's like, it can build the pros and the cons to 1,000 things. It's just going to loop and loop and loop.
Right.
So many people live up here and they don't accept the wisdom in their body. They don't accept the body set element. They compartmentalize their emotions. Sadness isn't safe to feel. Anger isn't safe to express. Maybe they have stories based, maybe their dad was angry a lot and they swore, I'm never going to be like my dad. Sadness is weak for men. And for women, it's like the fear of like getting lost in the sadness for too long, whatever the stories might be. Fear is weak. So probably one of the first, like, just really foundational things is developing this skill of being aware of what is going on in your body, being aware of your body set, not just your mindset, but your body set, being aware of like, oh, that was a constriction of sadness when they said that. Oh, I felt a little bit of fear when I was stepping outside of stepping on the edge of my comfort zone here.
Yeah.
And as you begin to recognize and be able to tell the truth about your experience, because those experiences trigger your thought flows, they trigger your patterns, they trigger your beliefs, they trigger your power, like how you can show up and engage in the world.
Yeah.
Developing that awareness gives you massive clues around
What's really wrong?
Healing what's going on.
Yeah.
So obviously, when you start something new, you're always gonna, again, anytime you start something new, commitment is the process of recommitment. It's just knowing, like, when I commit to something, like anything new, the reason why you haven't hit that and done that is because you've settled to the point, like you've hit the wall, and until you eat the Mario power up, right?
Right.
Like that's just going to be a wall. But when you eat the power up, then it's a step. So there's always, like, anytime you start something new, anytime you're playing at the edge of your comfort zone, anytime you commit to something new, like, it's the process of recommitment. It's the process of continuing to expand that and returning to it. And so there is that element with anything. But when you find it not being fun, when you find it, I want to be careful here because.
Well, it is tricky because I know what you're getting at, and it is.
Like, I don't necessarily love working out every single day.
Right, but you love the result. You love that it's hard. You love that it's, the end result, and you love the fact that you're on this path.
Yeah.
And so, and I get, that's what you're talking. You're not talking about, well, if you're not just happy every second, then.
Yes.
Right, and number one, some people do preach that, but also some people misinterpret what you're saying as that, which isn't that.
Yes.
I mean, in my movie making days, it was one of the hardest endeavors any of us ever go through. I mean, it's the most physically exhausting, it's painful, anger, all of these things, and we loved every second of it.
Yeah.
Because it was part of the process. So I totally understand what you're saying.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so if you find yourself continually hitting a ceiling and you don't understand why the ceiling's there, you don't understand why you don't have clarity, you feel stuck, you're second guessing yourself, you're questioning yourself constantly, and it's something that, like, you've been running up against constantly. I'm not talking like, hey, you decided you're gonna lose 20 pounds and you're 2 weeks in and it's tough.
I haven't done it or something.
Yeah, I'm talking about, like, it's probably a reoccurring theme, like a reoccurring theme in your relationships or a reoccurring theme with your kids. Like for me, like, just one of the areas right now, like, I have a hard time having fun with my kids. I love hanging out with my kids, but what I mean by having fun is, because I'm kind of introverted. I love to study. I love to read. I love to learn. I am not like an action person per se as much. Like, I enjoy sports, but I don't like get out there and do sports a lot.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's really challenging coming up with activities to do with my kids. So I have a 6-year-old daughter and a 2-year-old son. And so sometimes, like, of an evening, a reoccurring thing that I've noticed through self-awareness that I feel sadness around and I feel some fear around is, of an evening, I'm more comfortable, like, I would naturally, like, hey, Shiloh's my daughter, 6-year-old. I want to have a deep conversation with Shiloh. And I'm more comfortable, like, sitting around having a conversation. Whereas for her, what probably would feed her spirit and feed her identity more is, like, let's go outside and run around a whole bunch.
Right. And it's not a matter of putting the time in. It's not a matter of the engagement.
Yes.
But it's going in it at their terms and what's going to serve
exactly
them.
On their level. And so for me, I am not super imaginative. Like, I have a really, really close friend who's amazing at, like, hey, let's do this activity, let's do that activity, that's not me. Like, I'll sit there and I'm like, what do I do? And I'll be Googling, like, okay, what a top 10, and and we go and we do that, and it's great, but I'm not naturally strong there. And because it's something that it's been a challenge reoccurring, like, it's not just like 10 weeks, like 2 weeks of this, it's been like, this is something that's been consistent throughout my fatherhood. I know that there's deeper stuff there.
Yeah.
As it relates to maybe how I was raised, or as it relates to my outlook on life, I don't know. I'm still digging into that.
Yeah.
So that's something I'm in the process of, and I know, like, and that's part of the forest for the trees. That's something that like I would go to my coaches and be like, okay, like there's something here. I don't really know what it is.
Right, but
I'm hitting a glass ceiling
right,
here.
and you're self-aware enough to know that it's there.
That there's constriction, there's sadness, there's areas where I fall into guilt or shame, like, oh, I wish I was a better dad here or whatever. And so then that's often where, and I don't want to imply that like people, I think the answers are always within you. But if you want to collapse time,
right,
getting that outside perspective and having, an hour-long conversation around it is totally invaluable, or else, you can just sit with it for months and try to figure it out on your own. And you will.
Right.
But
no, that makes total sense. I mean, that's huge. And that goes for everything. I mean, it goes just like you would go to a business coach, you'd go to this. I mean, this is something that runs its thread through all of those areas.
Yeah.
Which I think is the reason it's so powerful, and it's awesome what you do. And so I love this. I mean, I want to dig it just a little bit, like what got you to this place, like this path, to what you're on now, because I mean, there's certain skill sets. There's writing along the way, copywriting, there's those sort of tangible skill sets, but there's an overall, what you've just described is your overall offering and everything. So what's been that journey a little bit to get here?
Big journey of pain, failure. So I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I remember at 13, started a lawn care company at 13. There's a leader in our church that was a business mentor, and really early on he kind of spoke into me as like, hey, you're a leader. Like he kind of really spoke into my life. He gave me a few books, exposed me to Napoleon Hill, nice. John Maxwell, I was like 11, 12, 13, something.
That's great.
And totally shifted, I wanted to be a business owner. I wanted to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And I didn't grow up from an entrepreneurial family. So for me, it was like a service industry. Eventually, long story short, I built and worked on building business after business, idea after idea, grass is greener stuff over and over and over, and kept getting golden handcuffs essentially. I would build it, I'd create it, and then I'd feel trapped, I'd feel stuck, I didn't feel aligned. And I learned tons of marketing strategies, tons of sales strategies, learned all this, dove into internet marketing. I'm just giving you a really quick, but it wasn't me. I wasn't aligned. I wasn't congruent. I wasn't in integrity. And what I realized is that you can talk surface level strategies. I realized it in my own life, and then with my clients as it related to marketing and sales and stuff like that. You can talk surface level strategies, but until your beingness, until you're aligned at your core, on a deep level, and you're telling the truth about your experience, and you're fighting for that place of expansion. One of the key things that I want to talk about with integrity really quickly is just the difference between a full-bodied expansion. Some people would call it a fuck yes or a hell yes. A full-bodied expansion is a sign that you're aligned. When and you can easily enter flow, you have a full body expansion. Constriction is a sign that there's either a belief or it's just feedback. Sadness, anger, fear. Normally, those are the constrictions. They're feedback that there's a lesson. That there gets to be a mindset shift, or there's a limiting belief, or there's a lesson there for you. There's a place that you're not loving in yourself or in your experience. So anyway. You can stack all the strategies that you want on top of being unaligned, and you're not going to get the results that you want. It's incongruent. It's not going to happen. You may in one area, you may in one cylinder, you may get results, but you're never going to get fulfilling results. Right.
And so keep hitting that certain wall, that certain ceiling.
You're gonna life is gonna keep bringing you the resets until you align with your truth as a creator, until you align with the expansion, and you. So for me, I'm just the way that I think. I did several years of debate in high school, and my mom, I was homeschooled. I'm also the oldest of 9.
Oh, wow.
Love being homeschooled. And my mom really focused on teaching me how to learn and how to think, not what to learn and what to think, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
So massive focus on worldview, philosophy, just things like that. And so for me, I'm always like, what's underneath that? What's at the root? And asking, like, that's how I converse with people. That's how I am relationally. Like, I'm always taking it to the deeper level.
Yeah.
And in a way, like, the difference between kind of a surface level aha conversation and then the type of conversation where, like, oh, sweet, you stepped into vulnerability. Now I'm going to meet you in that place. And so for me, it became less
and superpower. That's awesome. Yeah.
Thank you. It is. It became less and less about the strategies, because for years I was all about, okay, the copywriting, the marketing. It became less and less about that, and it became more and more about, like, the person behind the strategies. It became more and more about the congruence, and people can tell subconsciously when someone is in power and when someone is not. And while they can be fooled for a period of time, if you're looking for consistent, sustainable results, you can't trick the system.
yeah, for sure.
And so,
even through a blog post, through certainly a video, through certain, like, all of that. Our friend AJ, who's been on the show as well, like, I know it's a big part of what he's teaching as well. Is like, this, your true self is going to come through all these layers.
For sure. And so I just got more and more attracted to that game and up-leveling that game in myself and healing that, like, crazy stuff, to heal my wounds, my fears, to heal where I was out of alignment, to face, my demons, to face my darkness.
Yeah. So then what are the results that you found once that realization has hit you and you've gone through that process a lot more and you've realigned what you're going after? How has that manifested itself?
Well, I walked away from, like, a lot of, I still enjoy marketing stuff, but I walked away from a lot of that.
Tactics,
the tactics, yeah, like being a marketing expert, doing funnels and all of that stuff, copywriting. And again, I still enjoy that if it has that other piece underneath, right? Yeah. But my conversation stopped being like, okay, well, we need to, split test this or write this headline or whatever. And it started turning into, like, oh my gosh, like, the path that you're on, like, you're going to be divorced in 6 months.
Wow.
Like, we're not, like,
yeah.
Like, that's why your business isn't succeeding. It's because, like, you have such a shame identity drain over here, or you have you have totally blocked out this other area that, like, if we squeeze the hose of our experience to avoid things and not tell the truth of ourselves to things, we also squeeze the hose that allows us to experience joy.
Certainly.
So when you ask the question, how good can I stand it? How much joy, how much positive energy, how much peace, how much love can flow through me? How good can I stand it? How big of a conduit? When you open up that conduit, you have to tell the truth about the other stuff. You have to face, it's the same conduit of all the fears that you've been hiding from, all the, like, those things that when you look at yourself in the mirror and the deeper, darker things that you think about yourself or that you think about others, the sadness, the anger, the unresolved relationship stuff. Like, so that all my conversations started pivoting to that, and it, interestingly enough, that started impacting the results that my clients were getting. And so that's kind of like where I focused. And so for me, I've walked in one way. I wrote a post recently, like, I can't remember exactly, but it's something like, this book cost me millions. But, like, I love my life now. Like, I love where I'm at. I love the trajectory that I'm on. I'm fulfilled. I'm getting fulfilling results. And while, from maybe a bank account standpoint or a business standpoint, the results piece would be way higher, it doesn't freaking matter if it's not fulfilling results. Yeah. It's like,
yeah. But yeah, even with your clients, though, you're seeing both. You're seeing the bank account amazingly does
Yeah,
go
the
up.
way you do one
And,
thing's the way you do
yeah,
it.
the marketing blocks open up. And,
Yeah.
And yeah, then all the other pieces are still, you're still going to split test this, you're still going to set up some funnels, you're still going to,
Yep.
you know, as a, you know, anybody doing, you know, business and internet marketing and all of that.
Yeah.
But,
And I'll say this, when you get clear on your identity piece, when you get clear on the other stuff, often it's a great filter because you start to realize, wait, that marketing advice isn't for me.
Yeah, you're
It's
not
like,
out there searching for the next thing. What's the next thing?
Yeah,
What's the next thing?
it's
You're
like-
like, you know exactly. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah.
And that's also one of my superpowers is like helping people once they get clear in their personal power, it's like, wait, like this is the type of business model that you want, not
That's
this
great.
one over here, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah,
But
for
that's
sure.
a whole other tangent.
But that's awesome. Yeah, that would be, and I know I've gotten help from you in that area as well, and it is a superpower for you. It's fantastic. So, so in this part of we're wrapping up here for folks.
Okay.
What are you doing right now for your own kind of, now that you've gotten clear on where you are in your path and you
Yeah.
know, always along that? How are you using marketing? How are you using video? How are you using all that stuff in your? Because that's the part I'm always curious
Okay.
about in all these different, everybody's different business that comes on the show.
Totally.
How are you using all of that right now?
Okay, so I always have several projects running. So I always do one-on-one coaching. Like
Okay.
that's like I'm so fulfilled with like the deep dive. If someone wants to go all the fucking way, like that's the deep stuff that like really turns me on. So
Yeah.
I'm always working with one or two one-on-one clients. But a project that I'm super, super excited about is with Gary. And I know you've had Gary on the show.
Yeah, Gary David Rodriguez. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing guy. So let me tell kind of the backstory. So entrepreneurs and business owners, they go through a roller coaster, the entrepreneurial roller coaster.
Sure.
And it's an emotional one, it's a financial one, where, you know, some weeks you're on top of the world, you close a big deal. And then like 3 weeks later, you're like, okay, where's my next sale coming
Right.
from? Bills are due in a couple of weeks.
Right.
And you hit, you know, fight or flight and like got to create something. And so that leads, like, generally the cash flow doing that is a result of something emotionally going on with that. And so I started asking the question, like, what is the most powerful way to kind of, instead of like having the dips, to build off of the highs? So if someone wanted to stay at that edge of high performance, instead of having like 2 or 3 days of the week where it's like you're not relaxing, but you're actually like kind of in the pits. You're kind of just like am I doing the right thing? You're discouraged about something. You're pissed off with someone. You know, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
How can we, like, instead of losing our momentum during those things, how can we build on momentum after momentum, especially internally where it matters the most?
Yeah.
And outside perspective is like one of the
Shoot.
so powerful.
Yeah.
And so I started like just asking, like, what's available to entrepreneurs to get that outside perspective, and how is it actually built for outside perspective around like a core area of challenge, or is it more like just training? And on the marketplace, me being in the coaching industry, you know, there's lots of coaching that's training. There's lots of one-on-one coaching that's really, you know, high ticket stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt like we could have a business model where it was a lower investment and it was targeted one-on-one calls. So that in the moment when someone is experiencing that, they can reach out, and within 24 hours, you know, they can be on a one-on-one call with an amazing mindset coach that can just help shift that one piece and get them back into a state, like a body state, a being state of power, optimized performance, clarity, and just like, boom, this is my next step.
That's huge because, I mean, so many of those other solutions, which are great in their own right, you know, this course that you're going to go through, or this training, or this one session that you go through, while those have their place, it's you're not going to go, if you haven't gone through that training yet, you're not going to all of a sudden on a Wednesday when you're feeling what you're talking about, you're going to go like, you know what, I'm going to stop everything and I'm going to go devour this,
Exactly. Yeah.
8-week
It's like,
course.
like, oh yeah, my coaching call, is in 5 more days. I'll just wait for that.
Right.
It's like, and you're losing momentum. Or like events, like you go and you get pumped up and you're in that optimized state. And then like 3 days after the event, you're just like, okay, the event's not in your back pocket.
Right.
And so for me, like in my experience, it was just like, how awesome would it be to just like pick up the phone and have like a 10-minute conversation with someone who's qualified to help me get objective, who I knew didn't have like other motives in the game, but was just like, hey, no, my motive is to get you back into a place of power.
Yeah. And that's massive because I've been fortunate, to be coached from AJ and things. He was the first one that I always intellectually knew, like I knew mentorship and having a coach would be helpful, but until you go through it. And then the lesson I had to learn though too was to ask for help at that right time, because there's still a level of, I know what I need to do. I know I got it. I know what I need to do.
Totally.
But then I started flexing that muscle and getting better at, let me call.
Yeah.
Let me have that conversation with AJ, with whoever it might be. And it was always just amazing and incredible. And you're like, all right, I know it. So I've experienced that feeling you're talking about.
Yeah.
So I know how amazingly valuable. And if you haven't out there watching, listening, it changes everything. And again, when you're midweek, on a late afternoon, about to go home, and stuff is just not working right, it can be something that's like, well, I'll just hit it again tomorrow, and instead, if you can take this step, it's massive. So where do you stand with all that program right now?
Yeah, so we're beta testing it right now. We're bringing on 20 people at like an incredibly low investment because we want to make sure the systems are all good. So I'm doing it with Gary. So that's at stateshifting.com. So people can check that out for sure. My book is The Unlimited Self on Amazon. So that's kind of what I have going on. And then I do some marketing consulting on the side for people that I know are congruent with who they are, and or are willing to do the work to get congruent. And then and then often the marketing pieces just fall into place. The marketing is easy once you get that. So the state shifting stuff, like just bouncing back to that really quick and to piggyback on what you were saying, it is, if you're having an experience and you're not loving it, and you know that you're not performing at your optimized way, we can just get so stuck in that mental loops. Mm-hmm. And it's having that outside perspective, even if it's a small thing, collapses time. Because here's the thing that I just want to kind of leave everyone with is like, you can't underestimate the power of momentum. Momentum, like we look at the people that have what we want or that we may compare ourselves to, and I'm telling you, normally it's nothing to do with a strategy or a tactic. It's internal power and certainty, and it's that they have built momentum day after day after day after day. So a lot of people do momentum for a couple days, and then they do the roller coaster, and then momentum, and then roller coaster. And so what their life looks like is this, right? Oh, yeah. The people that have it made, if you will, they're going here, and then they're shifting their state and going here, and shifting their state and going here. And then pretty soon, there's a difference between here and here. And it's not how they did the work. It's not the work that they're doing. It's that they optimize their momentum. And that's really kind of part of the vision of helping people with state shifting, is to helping people identify when they're losing momentum and then to get them shifted back into high optimized momentum. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you're doing it. I'm so anxious to see that roll out.
Yeah. What happens there. Stateshifting.com.
So stateshifting.com, find you on Facebook too.
Yeah, totally on Facebook. I'm super active on Facebook. Jonathan Heston on Facebook. I think my URL might be jonathan.heston1. Okay. Yeah, definitely friend me. Send me a message if you friend me that like, hey, you saw me on the show. And
yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah.
This has been fantastic.
I loved it. Yeah, thank you.
I'm so appreciative of Jonathan coming on. I loved those insights and several of those things that analogies I'd heard before, but with his framework around them just brought me so much clarity, even in this interview, and certainly in conversations that I've had with him before now and even after our interview. So definitely reach out to stateshift.com, find him on Facebook, reach out to him there. And you'll see really quickly, if you haven't already in the interview, that he's an amazing resource and help for getting this kind of clarity in your life to then skyrocket to so many wonderful things. And so once you find that congruency in your own life, and you do want to take those next steps in terms of the tactical side and really getting your message in front of more people, make sure you reach out to me. Let's have a conversation about it. Jason@thejasоncroft.com. You can shoot me an email over there, and I can walk you through some steps that'll really help you get that message out and establish you as an authority in your industry and help you get your message out on a consistent basis. And if you like interviews like this, make sure you subscribe here on YouTube. If you're listening on iTunes, subscribe there if you will. Leave us a review, and we'll see you on the next one.
It's Saturday night. It was Saturday night and I'm feeling kinda silly. Winter coat on cause the air was chilly, but I'ma make my way out to the record spot. Gotta find some new breaks for the beats to rock. I gotta come with the flavor like some lifesavers. On now and later, Dr. Beat Maker. If I'm a player, it's like your tape deck. And if you miss the gig, then take a rain check. Stacks of wax piled high to the ceiling, need a U-Haul truck if I would think about stealing. But it's not my steed, so I commence with the digging, no kidding. Something that'll keep the beats hitting what I'm getting. So much to choose from, bro.